Hi, I'm Nancy Poznak. I'm a health educator and I advocate for vegan food and the many wonderful reasons to go vegan. I started my journey actually when I was a teenager. I went vegetarian. I thought it was more spiritually beneficial. And I did that for about 7 years, and then I did go back to eating animals. And it wasn't until I was, many years later, I was 59, where I saw some undercover videos of animal agriculture. And I dove head on into researching the reasons why this existed and all of the benefits, the health benefits, the environmental benefits, the benefits to wildlife and resources that are impacted by our food system. So I've been on this journey now for 7 years, and I have to say it keeps getting better. And I love being able to share these things that I've been understanding with other people. Since going vegan, the first thing that happened to me was I felt that a conflict I didn't even know I had ended. And granted, I had learned about all the horrors of going on in animal, fowl, and fish agriculture and the many ways that animals are used, and I was horrified and outraged. And it took a while for me to kind of settle down and get some clarity about all of these things. But I did notice that when I finally made that decision, there was definitely a sense of peace that I experienced just from that decision. And now knowing that I'm living in line with my deepest values that we actually all share. So one of the things I noticed was that before I went vegan, the skin on my face was very uneven and it didn't look that great. And in about 2 months after going vegan, I noticed that my skin really cleared up, never had to wear any foundation anymore, and I just felt great. It really gave me a sense of aliveness more than I had ever had before. And I never felt that going vegan was restrictive. Now, I had been eating a lot of plant-based foods before that. I was eating things like tofu and vegan butter for health reasons. It wasn't until I learned what actually had to be done to the animals to use their bodies for food that inspired me to just eliminate all of it permanently for good. And the other thing that I felt was I felt that I had more energy. I felt that I was lighter. And a few people that I knew commented to me that my whole facial expression had changed. It was more gentler and kind. And I thought that was interesting because a couple of the people that said that had not gone vegan themselves. And by that time, everybody around me knew of my decision to go vegan because I was rather outspoken about it most of the time. And so I really experienced both a physical, a psychological, and an emotional relief and uplifting feeling of living this way because I knew that it was the most kind and responsible way to live and the healthiest as well. Fundamentally, what grounds me in staying this way in a society where it was inundated with animal use and abuse is really having compassion for the animals and a respect for their lives, that they have a right to their own lives, to be themselves just like we want to be ourselves and live freely. And they have that right to do that. They have a right to be free from human harm. They have a right to live out their entire lifespan, that we don't interfere with that. And we all wouldn't be wonderful if we all had a natural, peaceful death. And we shouldn't be taking these things away from them. So in that sense, it really was fundamentally something about compassion and respect for lives that grounded me in being vegan. But also the health benefits are something that are really important to understand. Because until now, we've all thought that we needed to eat animals. And there are still some people saying that we do, but there's an enormous body of science that keeps growing and growing that proves that not only do we not need to eat animal products, but there are in fact some very specific ways that they harm our bodies. And another important reason, which seems to be the most proliferating reason at this time for the growth of plant-based foods, is the environment and how thoroughly devastating animal, fowl, and especially fish agriculture is to the planet. And we can't really afford to keep doing this to the planet anymore because we're cutting off the branch we're sitting on. Another aspect is wildlife conservation and resource conservation. It takes about an enormous amount of plant food to feed an animal and get a little bit of nutrition out of their body, and it doesn't make any sense because the animals that people eat, they're plant eaters. So we're plant eaters too. So let's just take the animals out of the equation and get it directly from the plants. And we can use 75% less land would be needed on a plant-based diet. So many, many issues that go into why plant-based systems and why plant-based foods and why doing everything we can to eliminate having to use sentient beings for our purposes. So many people say, you do your thing and I'll do mine. I respect your choice to be vegan, but I want to still eat what I want to eat, and it's none of your business, and and I know it's good for my body, and you don't know, and on and on and on, and these excuses. Well, it's true, we do need to listen to what our bodies want to have, but because of the impacts that food systems have, and all other systems that we use animals, have on the environment and on the planet, that what we eat is everyone's business, because it's never just personal. Our food are among the most personal and most intimate choices that we can ever make, but they're never just personal. So it actually is our business what each other eats. It would be like me taking my garbage and dumping it in my neighbor's living room and saying, you do your thing and I'll do mine. Meanwhile, you've put you're ruining my planet. You're ruining my home with what you're doing. So we really need to not be so self-centered and really come together and be citizens of the planet and understand we have to share this planet with each other, and we have to share this planet with all of the other species that depend upon us to act responsibly. And I believe that humanity is really meant to be a great caretaker species. Many people also feel that, the animals, they're here for us to eat. And I don't believe that anymore. I think, what if, instead of them being here for us, what if we're here for them? What if we're here to try and help make this world a place that's beautiful and thriving for everyone, not just people? Because if you think about all the things we've done for ourselves as a species, how we've controlled nature, how we've manipulated so many things. We fly up in the air, we go under the water, we sent people to the moon. We've done things that physically our body was really never meant to do, with technology and knowledge and with the drive to have a better life. And I think we should be taking all of that knowledge and drive to have a better life and become the great caretaker species on this planet, instead of seeing everything as here just for us, which is a very egotistical way, to have that eco perspective where we are part of the whole and we're here to actually help everyone thrive, not just us. For me, I really want to help people see vegan as something wonderful and delicious and abundant and joyful. It's so important that people's first impression of what vegan means is a really positive one. I'm not really trying to just scare everybody into going vegan. I'm certainly not going to tell them they're horrible people because of what they do, because I don't believe that. I believe, I know that we've all been raised in a culture that taught us certain things, and this culture has very, very powerful influences on us, and you can't really blame people for being who they are. So I really try to help uplift people and encourage people to do something from a positive point of view. And to that end, I've held some vegan buffets and social interactive events where the entire evening is positive and upbeat. I have a little bit of education at the end. And it's really because education is empowering people, not coming at them like this and saying, you have to be like this and look at all the horrors and all the horrible things. Because going vegan for me is so much more than just avoiding horrors. Why, of course we want to. And no one would ever say it's okay to be cruel to animals, but yet the normalized violence of these systems, in fact, does impose cruelty on them. So it's important that people know that, but people are going to stick with the things that bring them pleasure and joy when they have a choice. So it's very important to me for people to say, look at this incredible world of living this way that has this vegan label on it. It's got food that you never dreamed of, all the things you can do, unlimited choices of food, and how wonderful it is for the environment. And be that change that you want to bring, be that kindness, be that love, be that caring, and let people see that and connect with that with them. rather than coming on top of them and telling them they're horrible people because you're not vegan. It's just never going to inspire anybody. And the shaming and the blaming that I actually still see happening a lot is very limited and very shallow, because the success of that is only dependent upon the fact that that person is seeking approval. And it's kind of manipulative that way, because you're honing in on their need for approval. And they might agree with you in the moment, but when they go back to everyone else they know who's not vegan, they're going to want their approval, and then you're done. And generally, people, like I said, we're pleasure seekers. And so it's very important that people know they have a safe place to land. Because I still hear people say all kinds of things like, oh, but it's really hard to make vegan food taste good, right? And I said, no, that's where all the flavor lies, pretty much. Spices, herbs, onions, garlic, and all the color is in plant foods. So really everything that we need and more comes in all of the different forms of plant foods that we have. And it's something like, I've seen numbers like 20,000, 30,000 varieties of edible plants, and we have just a few that we hone in right now. So it really expands your choices, and it's just really a wonderful thing to do. Any regrets going vegan? What? Do I have any regrets going vegan? No! I only regret that I didn't do it sooner. I mean, I went vegetarian when I was young because I thought it was good for spiritual reasons, but I really didn't know much more than that. And then with the onset of social media, that's really has a lot to do with the rise of the plant-based movement, the vegan movement. But I would never regret making a choice like this. Absolutely not. Well, I was vegetarian, as I've said, when I was younger, and then I went back to eating animals, although I didn't eat red meat, probably more for health reasons. So I really believe that a lot of people start doing this, start becoming more and more plant-based, and even try being vegan, and they stopped. A couple reasons. One, because of this prevalence of animal products. Up until recently, it really did limit your choices. And it would be very hard to be sitting in a room full of people and everybody else is eating the foods that you used to eat and enjoy, and you're the only one sitting there chomping on whatever side dishes or celery you could find. But so I really think a lot of it has to do with cultural influences that are very, very powerful, because we all need to have our tribe. We all need to have that acceptance of at least a few people it's a survival instinct, right? We're really not meant to be alone. So as society moves more and more towards plant-based foods, which it is, and as this becomes more normalized, people will feel more comfortable and more able to manage maybe being that different, and it'll be less and less different. And before we know it, it's going to be really the norm, the social norm, as it's headed that way. But I do find that sometimes people still have very cynical comments to make. They say, well, I went vegan and I got really tired and I didn't feel good. And well, you probably really didn't know how to eat right, because we never really learned how to eat right. And the other thing is that there are certain nutrients that are in flesh that we need. But remember, the animals that people eat are plant eaters too. And how do those nutrients get into their muscle? The same way they get into ours, our body makes them. So it can take some time for your body to adjust to having to make these nutrients that it didn't have to for a long time because they were coming in the form of animal flesh. But the damage that animal flesh does really offsets any benefit that might be had from getting the flesh. The other thing is to take a B12 supplement, because that's not found in plant foods generally. And remember, farmed animals have to be given B12 supplementation and a host of other drugs that keep their bodies viable for sale. So I'm more than happy to take a vitamin B12 supplement. I take a D3 because I live in an area where we don't get sun all the year. In fact, Maryland, it rains a lot. So there's really very few things that you need to do to make up for what you won't be getting. It's been naturally in the animal products that you can buy in the store. So it really has a matter. I think the biggest influence is more cultural and social, and making sure that people feel comfortable with their choices. And then one thing I tell people, if they're nervous about that, I just say, just take it one step at a time. Don't make a big deal out of it. You don't have to go around trying to convince everybody else around you to go vegan, because first of all, you really can't. But just set that example. And I think it's so important that when I'm with a group of people and I might be the only vegan there, I'll eat my vegan food and I'm perfectly fine. I still enjoy their company. It's not, I don't really make a big issue out of it, although people often ask me at that time, like, why are you vegan? And so I'm happy to give them my answer. But I think it's very important that we just feel grounded in our decision, feel comfortable, and have our big why. A lot of the time people might start to go vegan and haven't really gotten that big why. They haven't really understood all of the things that are so important to understand about the animals, about our health, about the environment. And as these things become more and more prevalent and more accessible to the general public, I think we'll see a lot of people coming back and turning around. Well, this morning I had an amazingly delicious, entirely vegan bagel with just egg, with some vegan cheese, with some avocado, with some potatoes, some hash browns on it, some tomatoes and lettuce and onion, and that was fabulous. I do have some, what I guess you call comfort vegan foods out of habit, but I try to stay as much as possible with the whole foods. So I have the range of foods, all the produce, the fruits, the vegetables, the berries. I like to have some nuts and seeds. They're houses of nutrition. And then things like whole grains and legumes. Those are all the lots of B vitamins and nutrients that are in it that actually can't be found in animal foods. People think that you're lacking nutrition if you don't eat animal products. They think, well, where are you going to get your protein from? Because they don't realize protein is actually not really a food group. It's a nutrient. So is carbohydrate. It's a nutrient. It's not a food group, and so is fat. So turning those things into food groups has made a lot more confusion in nutrition choices than anything else. And a lot of people are afraid to go vegan or plant-based because they think they're going to have all these carbs. And so, well, carbohydrate-based food, that's true, it is all plant foods. But carbohydrate-based foods, carbohydrate is the body's preferred source of fuel and energy. And generally when people say, oh, I'm eating low carbs, they really mean they're eating less bread and less things made from flour. Well, that's fine. We don't really need to eat a lot of that anyway. I happen to love bread. Probably eat way too much of it. But really just eating a well-balanced nutrition. And every major health and nutrition organization has an official statement saying that a well-balanced vegan diet is healthiest. Get educated. It's what you know is what really drives us and what grounds us. So get some education about it. There's some really great programs out there. The Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine has some programs. It's so easy to find them online. There's vegan starter guides. My very favorite vegan starter guide is called the African American Starter Guide, Vegan Starter Guide. And although it's geared towards African Americans, which is fantastic, it's something that anybody could benefit from. And it brings up a lot of important issues that I haven't actually seen in other guides. So just start eating like you normally eat and substitute the things that you might be used to. Like you can get, instead of cow's milk, which is really meant for baby cows, get people milk, like almond milk, soy milk, hemp milk, cashew milk, all kinds of different milks. Now, I make my own at home because they're easiest, but there are some really great brands out there. Find the ones that you like and use those. If you can't live without cheese, well, start having some vegan cheese. And there is a benefit to transitioning. And you're the only one that can determine how fast or slow you should go. So it's better that you take a pace that you feel that you can live with and gradually keep adding more plant foods to your plate. Build your plate around the plant foods and then take it from there, rather than building your plate around the animal foods. Because the more plant foods, the better. And it's really important that you focus on your positive movement forward rather than what you're not doing. Focus on what you are doing and this wonderful, wonderful path ahead. But getting educated and really learning about what proper nutrition is, all the reasons that are personally important to you, to really get grounded in your why. It's really important. there's more resources now for going plant-based, going vegan than I could ever. There's Colleen Patrick Goudreau as the Joyful Vegan. She's got podcasts, she's got a program, she's got books, fabulous. The Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. I mentioned the African American Vegan Starter Guide. On my website, botaniccuisine.com, botaniccuisine, one word, one C.com. I have a couple of sections with starter guides and lots of information that can help people get started. Find recipes, find restaurants and places that have vegan options, and just make it this joyful, wonderful new journey that you're on that is the healthiest, the most compassionate, and the best for the planet, and all with whom we must learn to share the planet. I have had a couple of people say they went vegan or plant-based from the information that I've shared. Other than that, we don't really get a whole lot of time with people, but I do a lot of advocacy all the time in my business. I prepare food and sell it at farmers markets, and I have information out there, and I have a lot of conversations with people. I've held events where they were, vegan buffets and social events where I have a chance to share some of the perspectives and some of the reasons why. So I know that I've had a very positive impact in people's lives because I can tell when I'm connecting with them and that they understand. My goal in advocacy is really to be like a partner and help people, bring people along. When and where they go vegan, we may never know, but we do know we can help them, in the moment for today. So that's really how my advocacy works. Is I want to find common ground and then work from there and see the good in people and address what's important to them. Because if an issue is important to them and not to me, and I can't make them care about the same things that I do. So it's very important to find what matters to them. And some people are going to care mostly about the environment. Some people are going to care more about health. And I find that once people get those things understood, then the issues that's going on with the animals, they're more likely to be willing to accept and embrace. But before that, I find people can be very shy or even defensive about their food choices and the way they've been living. It's not really something we can force people to change. But I do know that we can all have a very positive impact every day just by some of the things we can share with people. Do I know for sure that I've actually helped anybody else go vegan? And I have to say yes, although I might not know the individual person. They may not have come up to me and said, gee, something you said. Because here's the thing, nobody can really make anybody else go vegan. It has to end up being their choice. And generally, given the pervasiveness and the deep cultural and social ties people have to the customs around eating animals, it takes many influences from many different sides to somehow finally a person brings someone around. And that person still has to be willing to go against the status quo, which is probably the biggest indicator of someone's success at staying vegan or not in today's world is, are you willing to actually be different? Are you willing to be around a whole bunch of other people that might be eating differently than you are? And that can be a really big challenge. So sometimes I'll say to people, look, if you're at a party and you're vegan and you get all the things and there's this like piece of cheesecake sitting there and you're loving everybody's eating everything else and you feel like you want to have some of that. I say, look, if it's going to cause you a lot of stress and make it, more difficult for you, make your choice and then just move on and learn from it. But the thing is, start with the big things and then work your way out to the smaller issues. But mainly, we really may never know if someone went vegan because of what we said. Generally, probably not. It's probably what we say contributes to their understanding and contributes to the normalization of this compassionate and responsible and ethical lifestyle that we call vegan. So it's really a matter of just making that connection the best we can. That's why I really like circumstances where I can actually talk to somebody and look in their eyes and develop a relationship and develop some trust and then help bring people along that way. So we may really never know, but we do know that we can make a positive impact and help people come along that way. Do I think that I will ever eat animal products or secretions again? No, absolutely not. No way, ever, absolutely not. Do I think I would ever eat human babies? No. Do I ever think that I would decide to breastfeed from another species again? No. Do I want to eat the products of someone's period? That's an egg. No, because first of all, this stuff sounds disgusting to me, and it is, but I also understand what's needed, what must be done to those animals to use their bodies for those reasons. And I can't imagine ever doing that again. No, absolutely not, never. Will we ever see a vegan world? Actually, in my heart, I believe yes. It's very, very possible. Will I see it in my lifetime? I don't know. I think that the biggest driver now is actually the environment. And when we look at all of the proliferation of plant-based foods, it's actually environment and health that's being the biggest driving factors. Now, that's not to dismiss the ethical basis. Obviously, ethics has a role in our lives every day. For so many decisions that we make, how many of those have an ethical or a moral basis? Lots of them do. So there's no reason why our food shouldn't either. But will we see a vegan world? I don't know. I think it's very possible. I hope so. But at this point, I think with the way the environment is going, and it doesn't look like we're going to be able to turn things around fast enough, I think that it will be impossible to raise animals for food because the environment will be so degraded, and that people will be forced to eat a plant-based diet, and then they'll see they can be perfectly fine and healthy that way. And that's probably how things are going to be turned around the most, I think. One of my favorite quotes is by Henry Beston from his book, The Outermost House. This was read at the end of The First Earthlings by Joaquin Phoenix. We need another wiser and perhaps a more mystical concept of animals. We patronize them for their incompleteness, for their tragic fate of having taken a form so far below ourselves. And therein do we greatly err. We greatly err. For the animals shall not be measured by humanity. In a world older and more complete than ours, they move, finished and complete, gifted with the extension of the senses we have lost or never attained, living by voices we shall never hear. They are not brethren, they are not underlings, they are other nations, caught with ourselves in the net of life and time, fellow prisoners of the splendor and travail of the earth.